Success is a journey, not a destination. We hear this phrase all the time, but what does it truly mean? See, most of us are conditioned to believe that success is a point on the map, a finish line we cross, a title we earn, a moment of recognition that tells us we've arrived. But the truth is, success isn't a fixed point. It's not an achievement, a paycheck, or a promotion. Success is how we navigate every moment, especially the hard ones. It's how we respond when life doesn't go our way. It's found in the small, often invisible victories, choosing growth over comfort, resilience over defeat, progress over perfection. And at the heart of it all, emotional mastery. Because, let's be honest, our biggest obstacles aren't the challenges we face. They're the emotions those challenges stir up. Fear, anger, frustration, doubt. The question isn't whether we'll feel them. The question is, what will we do with them? That's where true success is found. That's where real mastery begins. Most of us go through life trying to avoid discomfort. We dodge conflicts, suppress difficult emotions, and do everything we can to steer clear of situations that make us feel vulnerable or exposed. And yet, no matter how much we try to control our environment, life has a way of throwing challenges at us. Challenges that stir up something deep within. These moments, the ones that make our hearts race and our stomachs tighten, are what we call triggers. A trigger is more than just an emotional reaction. It's a signal. A trigger reveals something about us, something we might not have fully acknowledged or understood. And yet, instead of listening to what our triggers are trying to teach us, we often go into fight or flight mode. We lash out, shut down, or blame others, assuming that if we could just eliminate the source of the discomfort, we'd be fine. But that's an illusion. Because the problem isn't the trigger itself. The problem is what it's exposing inside of us. Think about it. Why do two people experience the same situation and react completely differently? One person might shrug off a piece of criticism as constructive feedback, while another takes it as a personal attack. One person might see a challenging conversation as an opportunity for growth, while another avoids it at all costs. It's not the situation that determines our response. It's what that situation is tapping into within us. Let's break it down. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone interrupts you mid-sentence. Instantly you feel frustration bubbling up, maybe even anger. But why? Is it really just about being interrupted? Or is it because deep down it reminds you of times when your voice wasn't heard, times when you felt dismissed, overlooked, or unimportant? That emotional charge isn't just about the present moment. It's a reflection of something much deeper. Or maybe someone gives you feedback on your work and instead of seeing it as helpful, you feel attacked. Not because the feedback was harsh, but because it confirmed a fear you've been carrying. That you're not good enough, that you'll never measure up. The trigger isn't about the words spoken, it's about the meaning you've attached to them. This is why triggers are some of our greatest teachers. They shine a light on the wounds we haven't healed, the insecurities we haven't faced, the fears we haven't conquered. They give us an opportunity to see ourselves more clearly, to recognize the patterns we keep repeating, and to finally break free from them. But here's the challenge. Most of us don't want to face our triggers. It's uncomfortable. It forces us to look inward when it's so much easier to blame the outside world. And so we try to control everything around us. We avoid difficult conversations. We cut people off the moment they challenge us. We build walls to protect ourselves, thinking that if we just keep the triggers away, we'll be safe. But growth doesn't come from avoidance. Growth comes from leaning in. What if, instead of running from our triggers, we got curious about them? What if every time we felt that emotional surge, we paused, not to react, but to ask ourselves, what is this trying to show me? What is the real source of this feeling? Because the truth is, every trigger is an invitation to learn, an invitation to heal, an invitation to rewrite the stories we've been telling ourselves. Imagine the power of that shift. Imagine turning moments of emotional turbulence into moments of clarity. Imagine seeing triggers not as threats, but as opportunities to become more self-aware, more resilient, more in control. This is the path to emotional mastery, not by avoiding the things that challenge us, but by using them to grow. We live in a world that rewards speed. Fast decisions, quick reactions, instant responses. We're constantly moving, constantly processing, constantly engaging. But in this rush to act, to reply, to defend, we often miss the most powerful tool we have, the pause. Pausing feels counterintuitive. When something triggers us, when emotions rise, our instinct is to react now. We feel the pull to respond immediately, to defend ourselves, to prove a point, to regain control. It's a survival instinct wired deep within us. Our brains are designed to detect threats and respond quickly. In prehistoric times, that instinct kept us alive. But in today's world, most of the threats we face aren't life or matter. They are emotional, psychological, and social. And yet we still react as if we are in danger. A comment that feels like criticism, a text that sounds dismissive, a colleague who takes credit for our work, a delay in an important project. These aren't saber-toothed tigers lurking in the bushes, but our nervous system doesn't know the difference. It reacts instantly. Anger flares, frustration rises, anxiety kicks in, and without thinking, we respond. We fire off an email, we snap back with a sarcastic remark, we shut down and withdraw. But what if in that moment we paused? Pausing creates space. It interrupts the automatic response cycle. It gives us a chance to step back and ask ourselves, what's really happening here? Instead of reacting from impulse, we respond with intention. And that small shift, just a few seconds of stillness, can change everything. Think about it. How many times have you said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? How many times have you made a decision based on emotion only to realize later that you acted too soon? The power of the pause isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about allowing them to surface without letting them take control. It's about shifting from reaction to response. Neuroscience backs this up. When we're triggered, the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for emotional responses, takes over. It floods our system with stress hormones, preparing us to fight, flee, or freeze. This is called an amygdala hijack, and it happens in milliseconds. But here's the key. The logical, reasoning part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, needs time to catch up. That's where the pause comes in. Even a few seconds of deep breathing can help re-engage the rational mind, allowing us to process the situation more clearly. Great leaders, successful entrepreneurs, and emotionally intelligent individuals all have one thing in common. They master the pause. They don't react impulsively. They take a moment to assess. That moment, whether it's a breath, a short silence, or a deliberate delay, gives them control over their actions instead of letting emotions dictate the outcome. Consider the difference between two scenarios. Scenario 1, you receive an email from your boss with a critical comment about your work. You immediately feel defensive. Your fingers fly over the keyboard as you craft a pointed reply, justifying yourself, pushing back, making it clear that you were right. You hit send. An hour later, you reread your response, and suddenly, you doesn't seem so justified. Maybe you overreacted, maybe you misunderstood. Maybe that email will create unnecessary tension. But it's too late. Scenario 2. You receive the same email. The same frustration rises, but instead of reacting, you pause. You take a deep breath. You step away from your screen for a minute. And in that space, you reflect. Is this email really an attack? Is my response going to solve the problem or escalate it? What's the best way to handle this? And then, after that brief pause, you respond, but this time with clarity, with purpose, with control. That pause is the difference between emotional chaos and emotional mastery. Pausing isn't weakness, it's strength. It's not about ignoring feelings, it's about processing them in a way that serves us instead of sabotages us. It's about recognizing that emotions are real, but they aren't always right. Our first reaction isn't always the best reaction, and when we train ourselves to pause, we give ourselves the gift of choice. Athletes do this all the time. A professional basketball player standing at the free throw line doesn't rush the shot. He pauses, he takes a breath, resets his focus, and then executes. A boxer doesn't just swing wildly. He waits for the right moment, reading the opponent, anticipating, pausing before striking. Even in high-stakes moments, the best performers know that the pause is what creates precision. It's the same in life. When we pause before reacting to criticism, we give ourselves time to separate ego from reality. When we pause before making a big decision, we ensure that fear or excitement isn't clouding our judgment. When we pause in moments of anger, we prevent ourselves from saying or doing things we might later regret. But here's the challenge. Pausing is hard, it takes practice, it takes discipline. Our instinct is to react quickly, to fill silence, to respond immediately. But when we resist that urge, when we build the habit of pausing, we give ourselves something invaluable: control. Control over our emotions, control over our actions, control over the kind of person we want to be. Every single day, we are faced with moments that test us. A snide comment from a colleague, a sudden change in plans, a delay in something important, a driver cutting us off in traffic. These moments, big or small, create a split-second decision. Do we react or do we respond? At first glance, reaction and response might seem like the same thing. After all, both involve action, both involve a choice, but the difference between the two is massive. One is automatic, impulsive, and often destructive. The other is intentional, thoughtful, and ultimately constructive. A reaction is driven by emotion. It's the instant reply we give when we feel attacked. It's the anger that flares up before we even think. It's the defensive words that spill out when we feel challenged. Reactions come from a place of instinct, a primal urge to protect ourselves, to assert control, to fight back. A response, on the other hand, is driven by awareness. It's the pause before action. It's the deep breath before speaking. It's the choice to engage with clarity rather than impulse. A response comes from a place of control, where emotions are acknowledged but not allowed to dictate our actions. The difference between reacting and responding often determines the quality of our relationships, the effectiveness of our leadership, and even our overall success in life. Why do we react? To understand why we react, we have to look at the brain. When we experience a trigger, something that makes us feel frustrated, anxious, or threatened, our brain's amygdala takes over. This is the part of our brain responsible for fight or flight responses. It floods our body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing us to defend ourselves. In ancient times, this response kept us alive. If a wild animal attacked, we didn't have time to think, we had to react instantly. But today, we're not fighting wild animals, we're dealing with emails, conversations, and unexpected challenges. Yet our brain doesn't always know the difference. It treats a critical email from a boss the same way it would treat an approaching predator. And so we react, often without thinking. The cost of reaction. The problem with reacting is that it rarely serves us well. It might feel satisfying in the moment, snapping back at someone, proving a point, venting frustration, but often it makes things worse. A quick reaction can damage a relationship, escalate conflict, or lead to regret. It can create unnecessary tension at work, misunderstandings in friendships, and distance in personal relationships. Think about the last time you reacted in a way you weren't proud of. Maybe you sent an angry text and later wished you could take it back. Maybe you interrupted someone in frustration, only to realize later that you misunderstood. Maybe you made a split-second decision fueled by emotion and later had to deal with the consequences. Now think about how different things could have been if you had taken a moment to respond instead of react, shifting from reaction to response. The key to moving from reaction to response is awareness. We have to train ourselves to recognize when we're being triggered and create enough space between the trigger and our action to choose a better way forward. Here's how we do it. Pause before acting. When something upsets you, your first instinct will be to react immediately. Don't. Instead, take a breath. Give yourself just a few seconds to register what's happening before you respond. That small moment of stillness can be the difference between saying something you regret and handling the situation with wisdom. Ask yourself the right questions. Instead of acting on impulse, ask. These questions shift your thinking from emotional impulse to logical reasoning. They help you gain clarity before you take action. Reframe the situation. Often we react negatively because we interpret situations in a way that fuels our emotions. But what if we looked at things differently? Instead of assuming someone was rude to intentionally offend you, consider the possibility that they were having a bad day. Instead of seeing criticism as an attack, view it as an opportunity for growth. Reframing doesn't mean ignoring reality, it means choosing a perspective that helps you respond productively. Regulate your emotions. Emotional mastery isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about understanding them. It's about recognizing our triggers, embracing the power of the pause, and shifting from reaction to response. When we learn to pause, reflect, and choose our actions intentionally, we reclaim control over our lives. We build stronger relationships, make wiser decisions, and lead with clarity instead of impulse. The true measure of strength isn't in how fast we react, but in how thoughtfully we respond.